Love has always been misunderstood. Most people believe that to love means to hold, to protect, to manage, to ensure that nothing ever changes. But real love does not belong to control. Control is born from fear, and fear cannot coexist with the vastness of love. To love without control is to surrender to the mystery of another soul, to the flow of life itself, to the movement that is constantly creating and dissolving. It is not about possession, but participation. Not about clinging, but allowing. When love is free, it stops being an exchange and becomes a presence. There is no calculation in it, no strategy, no hidden hope that the other will fulfill a missing part of you. Instead, there is openness, a still and living awareness that sees beauty without needing to capture it. Most of us were taught to love with conditions. We learned to measure love through safety, through promises, through the quiet fear of losing what we hold dear. We say we want love, yet what we often seek is security. But the more we try to secure love, the more we drain its life. Real love is like a river. It flows because it cannot do otherwise. It nourishes everything in its path, not because it must, but because that is its nature. When we attempt to control it, we dam the current. We stop the music that only plays when we let it move. To awaken through love is to finally see that love was never yours to manage. It does not depend on the approval of another, nor the permanence of a bond, nor the repetition of a feeling. Love simply is, arising and fading as naturally as the breath, as waves appear and vanish into the ocean. Awakening begins when you realize that love is not something you do. It is what remains when the self disappears. When the one who wants, who fears, who demands, becomes quiet enough to let life express itself without interference. There is a peace that comes when you no longer ask love to obey your expectations. You no longer need the world to reflect your desires. You begin to love existence as it is, imperfect and alive, sometimes chaotic, sometimes silent, yet always whole. When I speak of love without control, I speak of a state of being in which you stop trying to make love fit your image of it. You stop trying to shape the moment to preserve pleasure or to escape pain. You become an observer of the dance rather than its choreographer. In this space, love is no longer between two people. It is the energy that connects everything. It exists in the way sunlight touches the leaves, in the way waves bow before the shore, in the way your breath meets the air. This is love in its purest form, unbound, spontaneous, effortless. Most suffering in love arises from the illusion that we can own it. But the truth is that love cannot belong to you, just as you cannot own the wind. You can only feel its presence when you are open. The moment you try to trap it, it disappears. To awaken is to stop confusing love with control. It is to stop believing that you must earn love or protect it from change. The awakened heart does not demand guarantees. It simply gives, simply receives, and simply lets go when the time comes. There is great beauty in realizing that you are not here to direct love, but to experience it. You are the instrument, not the player. Love is the song that flows through you when you stop resisting life. When you love without control, you no longer fear loss, because you no longer measure love by duration. You no longer depend on the future to validate the present. Love becomes a moment of pure being, complete in itself. This is the awakening hidden in love. The discovery that love and awareness are not two things. That the same energy that allows you to see beauty is the same energy that loves it. It is the same stillness that breathes through everything that lives. When awareness and love merge, you no longer feel separate from the world. You love not as a person trying to reach another, but as life recognizing itself in every form it meets. This is the highest form of connection, not possession, not need, but recognition. To love without control is to let life teach you humility. It strips away your illusions of ownership, your belief that you can decide what stays and what goes. It invites you to see the divine intelligence that moves through all things, shaping and reshaping what the mind cannot grasp. You may lose what you love. You may face moments of emptiness or longing. But even then, love remains, quietly flowing beneath the surface. Because love is not what you receive, it is what you are when you are awake. The universe loves through you when you stop trying to control the flow. It expresses itself through your openness, through your silence, through your willingness to feel without holding on. That is where awakening happens, not in the pursuit of love, but in the surrender to it. When you understand this, you begin to notice that everything in existence has always been loving you back. The light, the air, the quiet moments between thoughts, all of it. Love was never missing, only your awareness was asleep. To awaken is to finally see that love never left. It was simply waiting for you to stop trying to own it. Love without control reveals the truth about who you are. When you no longer seek to manage love, you begin to feel its real depth. You discover that what you once called love was often attachment, a subtle attempt to make the other a mirror of your needs. But when attachment fades, love transforms into awareness. It becomes still, luminous, unshaken by outcome. To awaken is to let love move through you as freely as light through glass. It does not cling, it does not demand, it simply illuminates whatever it touches. And yet, that light reveals everything: the joy, the pain, the loss, the wonder. When you stop trying to direct it, love shows you not only beauty but truth. Most people fear this kind of love because it feels too vast. They say they want love, but what they often want is comfort, predictability, the feeling of being safe inside familiar limits. But love without control destroys limits. It expands beyond all definitions. It makes you transparent to life itself. To love freely is not weakness. It requires the deepest courage, the courage to be fully alive, to face uncertainty without closing your heart. This courage does not come from effort, but from surrender. When you stop grasping, something within you relaxes. That relaxation is trust. Trust is not blind, it is a seeing beyond sight. It is knowing that even if everything you love changes, love itself remains. The same way waves rise and fall while the ocean stays still beneath them. You are that stillness, not the waves of emotion that come and go. When you awaken, you realize that love does not need to be guarded. It only needs to be allowed. You stop fearing rejection, because you understand that rejection can only touch the image of yourself that wanted approval. But the real you, the awareness behind the image, is untouched. It simply watches, loves, and remains. This is the freedom that begins when love is no longer transactional. When you give, not to receive. When you listen, not to answer. When you stay, not because you must, but because presence itself is love expressing through you. To love without control is to dissolve the illusion of separation. It is to see that what you love and what you are the same essence in different forms. The flower you admire, the face you hold, the silence you rest in, all are movements of the same source. Control fragments this unity. It divides life into pieces you try to manage. But love unites everything again by reminding you that nothing was ever apart. The need to control is the need to defend an identity that feels separate from life. The moment you stop defending, life flows through you like breath. Love does not require you to fix anyone or anything. It asks you to see clearly, to see without judgment, without resistance. That seeing is healing. It transforms not by effort but by presence. Love, in its pure form, is not something you give or get. It is what happens when you stop interfering. When the mind becomes quiet, love begins to speak. Not in words, but in the subtle way existence responds when you are open. A sunset, a moment of stillness, the simple warmth of being alive, all whisper the same truth. You do not need to control love to feel it. You only need to be aware enough to recognize it. Awakening reveals that love is not about two beings meeting, but about life recognizing itself through two mirrors. There is no longer a lover and a beloved, only love experiencing itself. When this is seen, every encounter becomes sacred. Every separation becomes another form of union. The ego tries to define love because it fears its own dissolution. It wants to label, to contain, to predict. But love cannot be defined because it is not an object. It is a movement, an unfolding, a continuous revelation of the divine. To control it is to misunderstand its essence. To release it is to awaken to the truth that you and love are one. When you allow love to move freely, it begins to reveal your own reflection. You see that the qualities you admired in others were always within you. You see that the forgiveness you offered was your own liberation. You see that every act of love is a return to yourself. This realization changes how you move through the world. You no longer chase affection or recognition. You no longer search for completion in others. Instead, you begin to express love for the sake of loving, not for the reward of being loved back. It is a paradox. When you no longer seek love, it surrounds you. When you stop asking for it, it becomes your natural state. Because love was never something to gain, it was what you were before you began searching. To love without control is to live without defense. It means letting life touch you deeply, knowing it may hurt, yet not withdrawing. It means feeling fully, breathing fully, trusting fully, even when everything feels uncertain. That is where awakening happens, in the raw openness that no longer hides behind conditions. The awakened heart is not fragile. It is vast, unbreakable, unending. It has known loss, yet it is never empty. It has seen change, yet it never clings. It remains still in the middle of movement, peaceful in the midst of chaos. This heart does not love because it should. It loves because it is made of love. It cannot stop, just as the sun cannot stop shining. And when you rest in that realization, you understand what it means to awaken, not to a higher place, but to the truth that has been here all along. Love was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be lived. It was meant to flow through you until you remember that the one who gives and the one who receives are the same. That is the secret of awakening, the disappearance of the divide between the lover and life itself. There comes a moment when you stop asking love to make sense. You no longer need to define what it is or where it begins. You simply feel it moving quietly through all things, like a breath that connects every form of life. You start to see that love is not a relationship between two hearts. It is the heartbeat of existence itself. When you release the need to manage love, life starts to soften. You find beauty in simplicity, in imperfection, in what once seemed ordinary. The eyes that used to search for meaning now see meaning everywhere. Every sound, every silence, every fleeting moment becomes sacred. You begin to live without the constant desire to grasp or hold. You stop fearing the end, because you understand that what ends was never separate from what continues. You realize that love is not destroyed by change, it becomes change. It transforms, evolves, and keeps flowing through every expression of life. This realization frees you. It allows you to meet life as it comes, without defense, without control. You become like the sky, allowing clouds to pass, storms to form, sunlight to return. You remain untouched, yet intimately present with all that moves through you. When you love without control, you no longer see others as objects of affection or sources of pain. You begin to see them as reflections, mirrors of the same consciousness expressing itself in infinite shapes. Their joy becomes your joy, their suffering your compassion, their awakening your reminder of what you already are. You start to love not for who they are to you, but for what they are within life itself. Every person, every creature, every moment becomes an opportunity to recognize the same essence looking back at you. This recognition is love. It has no direction, no limit, no opposite. In the stillness of that recognition, the boundaries between self and other dissolve. There is no longer a giver and a receiver. There is only love flowing, endlessly creating, endlessly returning. And when you rest in that flow, you realize that awakening was never about learning more, it was about forgetting the need to control. The mind always tries to own love. It says, "This is mine, this is how it should be, this is what must never end." But the heart, when awake, knows otherwise. It whispers, "Everything that leaves me also returns through another form." That whisper is not sadness, it is trust. The deep knowing that nothing real can be lost. When you stop trying to control love, you discover a quiet power within you. A strength that does not resist, a peace that does not depend on certainty. You begin to live from that space, and everything changes. Even the way you breathe feels lighter, freer, more alive. Love, when left to its natural rhythm, becomes the purest teacher. It reveals your resistance, your fears, your hidden walls. It does not condemn them, it simply shines through them until they soften and fall away. That is how awakening happens, not through effort, but through the quiet patience of love undoing what was never real. There is a moment when you stop needing proof of love. You no longer wait for words or gestures to confirm what your heart already knows. You sense that love is always here, even in the silence, even in solitude, even in pain. It was never gone, only unseen behind the noise of wanting. When the wanting fades, awareness deepens. You begin to see that every act of letting go is an act of love. Letting someone walk their path. Letting time move as it must. Letting life be exactly what it is. This is not indifference, it is the highest form of compassion. Love without control is fearless because it is no longer personal. It does not protect an image or a desire. It exists freely, like wind moving through open fields. It touches everything, yet belongs to no one. This kind of love is the awakening of the soul. It is the end of resistance, the end of separation, the end of the endless search. You stop trying to find love because you see that you are made of it. You are not in love, you are love itself, aware of its own reflection. And in that awareness, life becomes astonishingly simple. There is no need to reach or escape, no desire to possess or prove. You move gently, you speak softly, you listen deeply. The ordinary becomes holy because everything is seen through the light of love. When you love without control, you live without fear. You trust the unfolding, even when you do not understand it. You see beauty in what comes and grace in what leaves. You learn to rest inside the motion of life itself. To awaken is not to escape the world, but to love it completely, to embrace the temporary, the imperfect, the uncertain, knowing that all of it is the divine playing in form. This is the art of loving without control. It is the discovery that love was never an act of possession, but an act of perception. It is the seeing that everything you touch, everything you lose, and everything you are, has always been one and the same. And when that realization blooms, there is nothing left to grasp. There is only love moving through love, endlessly flowing, endlessly awake.